Oh my goodness, look at me. I look like, well, I have been out in the yard picking up garbage all morning. Um, it wasn't all our garbage either because we don't drink soda in this house. I don't even know. We're not against soda, we just don't drink it. So, no judgment if you do, as long as you don't throw your cans in my yard. It's fine. Fine. But we've had a lot of wind, so I'm not really blaming anybody. Um, so yeah, that's why I look a mess. But it's okay. We picking up garbage is what we do every springtime, huh? And throughout the year, we do have a major road out here. People throw stuff out their windows driving by our house. Cigarette butts everywhere. I don't understand. Don't do that. Don't be those people. Anyhow, good morning. I'm Dawn. I'm the creator of Wikipedia.com and sacredheart.com. Um, and this morning I am here to tell you about seed packets because when I was just first starting gardening on my own, when I was a kid at home, I grew up gardening. When I was a kid at home, it just kind of magically happened. My parents told me what to do, and I did the thing. When I started gardening on my own, these seed packets can be confusing. Every brand is different. Some of them have a lot of good information, and some of them don't. So I have a big pile of seed packets right here. These are all these are seeds I'm germination testing right now, so I have them set aside. All very organized with my wonderful seed organization system that does not actually exist. Um, so we'll be looking at that. But first, I want to shout out to some of my patrons. First of all, Dan Sanderson just signed up. Dawn, I can talk. My name is Dawn. This person's name is also Dawn. I can say Dawn. Thank you so much for supporting Wikipedia, sacredheart.com, and my clumsy efforts to do whatever it is I'm doing here. Also, I want to shout out to Rin because Rin's been my patron for a while. Rin has helped out on the Discord channel as a moderator, and they are continuing to just give me valuable feedback on the Discord channel or on the Patreon. And just kind of give me ideas and also just cheering me on, and that's awesome. And thank you so much, Ren. Yeah, so I'm going to jump into it. We have seed packets right here. The first one I'm going to show you is this lovely cabbage seed package from M.I. Gardner. M.I. Gardner is somewhat local. They are Midwest. I like to, if I can, get my seeds from kind of local places. I mean, I can't always get them from local providers, but even when you do, a lot of times they're getting them elsewhere too. So not all the, in fact, probably most of the places where you're buying seed are not actually growing seed locally. They'll get them from other suppliers. I don't know M.I. Gardner's situation. I think that they're getting most of their seeds elsewhere, but they possibly growing some of their own. But if you can get seed that has been collected locally to you, then you're going to get seed that is good for your locality. And that is good. That is a good thing. You want your plants to to do well in your location, and if someone else has grown the plant and collected the seeds, then that plant that they got the seeds for are used to that location. So if you can have even, it doesn't have to be like next door to you, but in your zone, in your state, within a few miles, or even a couple hours drive, that would be ideal, unless you're going up into or out of the mountains, because once you start adding elevation, I think everything goes out the window. But there's a lot of reasons to go to a local provider, not just because your seed's going to be better for your location, but also because all the shipping and stuff that happens, that all uses fossil fuels and things. So anytime you're getting anything, anytime you're buying anything, it's always a good idea to look locally if you can. Anyway, seed packets used to be just $1. Now they're $2. I'm not mad. That is still a lot less than many seed providers. So if you're in the Midwest, this is a good place to go. And another reason why I like this particular provider, they have a very nice seed packet. Can you see the back of the seed packet? Probably not, and it's probably backwards. But at the top, you've got your name of your plant, and then just a brief description of the plant. It tells you 2 to 4 pound heads that can be harvested within 70 days of planting. It's very important information. A very fast maturing cabbage variety, not bitter at all. Seeds can also be used for microgreen sprouts. So just kind of a commentary on there. 70 days. So when you're looking at a seed packet, you're looking for days till maturity or days to harvest. So you're looking at, for this one, it's 70 days. Then it describes, this seed packet describes when you know it's ready to harvest. You will want to harvest the cabbage when it is firm and has reached an acceptable size. This variety can grow heads to 8 to 10 inches across in diameter. So that kind of gives you a clue what you're looking for when you're ready to harvest. Cabbages in particular, from my experience, you don't want to leave them out any longer than you have to, because the longer they are out in the world, the more likely something else besides you is going to eat them. They're pretty hardy plants otherwise, but everything loves to eat cabbage. You got cabbage worms, you've got woodchucks, you've got rabbits, you've got spongy moths, caterpillars of all sorts, loopers, and then there's the cabbage root maggots. I mean, just get your cabbage harvested as soon as it's ready to be harvested. So it's going to be about 70 days, and it's going to be 8 to 10 inches across and firm. And that is what you're looking for. 70 days is an important thing to know, because each type of plant is going to have its own growing season. For cabbages, it wants it to be relatively cool, not freezing, above freezing, but not hot. Once the cabbage gets hot, it starts to produce flowers and seeds, and it doesn't head up anymore. It starts to spread out, and the leaves they're still edible. At that point, though, I'm usually giving them to the rabbits or the chickens, which is also good. I like to leave the flowers on for a while for the bees. Then it's to the rabbits and the chickens. But it starts to get tough. It's just not tasty anymore at that point. So I like to plant my cabbages in the spring and then again in August for the fall. So I have a growing season for cabbages that's about 3 months long, which is about 90 days. So if I look on here and it says 70 days, that's great. That's well within my 90 days of growing season for cabbages. And you can spread the growing season out too with that pudding class. That's, up to you if you want to use advanced techniques or growing indoors as well. That's also a possibility. Let's see. So this says you can direct sow. Direct sowing is planting directly in the ground versus starting indoors. Direct sow after the first frost date. So anytime after your first frost date. Your first frost date I'm sorry. I can't read. Direct sow after your last frost date. Okay. So you want to direct sow after your last frost date. So your last frost date is the last day that on average your neighborhood can expect a frost. You can get this information from an almanac, from one of the many almanac related websites. There's also a website called Dave's Garden that has this information. Davesgarden.com has like calculators for stuff. I find it to be very generous. Like I look at it, I'm like, ooh, I can plant stuff on May 2nd. No, I can't. I can plant cabbages. But not tomatoes. A cabbage isn't going to be killed by a little bit of frost. So this says, anytime after your last frost date, you can stick it in the ground. Seed spacing 4 inches. 4 inches seems very close together, but it also says down here plant spacing 12 inches. So the idea is you're supposed to plant your seeds 4 inches apart, and then you pick the nicest cabbages, the nicest, most healthy looking plants, and then you thin them out so that your plants are actually 12 inches apart. You want your grown plants to be 12 inches apart. Your spacing is important. You don't think, when you get a cabbage at the store, and it took me a lot of years to figure out how to grow a cabbage because for a lot of reasons, the bugs being one of them. When you get a cabbage at the store, it's this nice little round thing that's like this big, right? But when you grow it in the ground, it is just this sprawling, spread out mess of a thing. Yeah. With just this little teeny tiny ball in the middle, which is great if you have rabbits because you have all this extra stuff for your rabbits. But that's a lot of space. And the slugs grow under there. They like that nice shade. So you want to make sure that the plants are at least 12 inches across so they can spread out a little, so you're not making this big, like completely shaded spot for the slugs to hang out in, so that there can be airflow in between the plants so they're not subjected to fungus, although that's not really a problem with cabbage, but other plants, yes. It is so yeah, spacing is important. A lot of times on these seed packets, they're again very generous with their spacing, and with mini plants, you can usually squish them a little bit closer together. But that's going to be something you want to experiment with. Maybe next year, you can say, okay, well, the seed packet's at 12 inches. I'll put 12 inches this year and then observe, and maybe next year you can switch them a little closer together. What I like to do in a row, and I don't plant in rows, I like plant in blocks. So they're kind of like, they're not raised beds, but they're sort of designed like raised beds. So I zigzag my cabbages back and forth, and then in the non-zigzag part, the in-between part on either side, I will plant additional like companions. Marigolds are one. Does this have companions on there? Some of the seed packets will have companions, but that's actually pretty rare. This one does not. Marigolds are really good to plant along with cabbage. I also like to plant carrots in that extra little space there. So I'm fitting more cabbages in my 12 inches because they're zigzagging. And then I'm putting something else that's maybe smaller or that's going to grow quicker in between It's a little more. It's not on the seed packet. I should not even be talking about that. So, but your spacing is important. Start out like any recipe. Start out following the packet, and then next year you can experiment. Um, this says now it says days to maturity again 75 days. So originally it said can be harvested within 70 days of planting, and this says 75. There are sometimes you may see these discrepancies because you can often harvest a plant before it's fully mature. Many plants are harvested before they're fully mature. You don't generally, once a plant starts seeding out, then you're getting a different kind of harvest. You're harvesting the seeds or the stalks or the flowers. And that is when it's mature. It's mature when it starts seeding. So, so between 70 and 75 days, you're going to harvest that thing. Days to germinate. So when you put your plants in the ground, they're going to germinate within 3 to 5 days. Now, when it first germinates, it's going to be this teeny tiny tail sticking out of the seed. If you've got your seed under dirt, you're not going to see it. So maybe give it another twice as long before you start noticing things poking out of the soil, before you freak out and decide that your seeds don't work. Seeds are bad. And then it says if you started indoors, start at 8 to 12 weeks before the last frost. And then after your last frost date, you can stick it in the ground. Again, if you have cover, if you have a greenhouse, if you're starting indoors, these are flexible dates. And then over here on the side, you have these little symbols. Can we see the symbols here? This one looks like a plant pot. It says container friendly. That means, it's not going to give you a hard time if you try to grow it indoors. Full sun. They do like full sun. And cold tolerance. So let's talk about full sun first. Many garden plants, not all, require full sun to grow, and that means that it's going to get sun for most of the day. The sun is if you live in a place where it gets hot and you're trying to grow cabbage and you're having a hard time growing the cabbage, you can give it a little shade. A lot of times, this is plants are flexible. Everything depends on your area and you. So if you want to give it a little shade, put it in a spot where like it gets sun in the morning, and then shade in the afternoon, or vice versa. See if you can get that cabbage to grow without bolting. That's when it sets seed or goes to flower and sets seed. We call that bolting. Most of your garden plants anyway want full sun. And this is not always possible for everyone, for every location. But as long as you are getting sun for most of the day or even part of the day, you can usually get something to grow. If you have a shady spot, you can look for part shade or full shade on there and see if you can't find something to fill in that spot. But a lot of times, especially when it's really hot, then these cooler season vegetables will actually do better in part shade. And then down here, there's a little snowflake, and it says frost or cold tolerance. Cabbages, brassicas in general, they do fine in the cold. As long as they're not frozen solid. And sometimes when they can be just fine. All right, here is a different seed packet. This is from Seed Savers Exchange. They are in Iowa. They get seeds from everywhere, though. People send them seeds, and they'll tell you where the seed came from, which is really cool. They'll tell you what state or country the seed was developed in, and sometimes they'll give you like a little story about the people who developed the seed. So this is a fun website. You can you can check out. Their seeds do tend to be a little more pricey, but you can find harder to find seeds there. Alma paprika is my favorite pepper. I do make paprika out of it. You just dry it and grind it. If you want smoked paprika, you smoke it. It's very simple. And you know what? This fall, I'll do a video on it so you can see how to make your own paprika out of this amazing pepper. Highly recommended. But not always easy to find. The regular, the usual seed companies don't have it, so I go to Seed Savers Exchange when I'm looking for something specific. So we have, this is a little more brief on here, and again, probably can't read it. I do apologize. I am working on getting better equipment. So this is a brief explanation of the plant. Highly productive plants, very, with thick-walled cherry-type peppers, so tasty. Mildly peppery variety is one of the best for drying and grinding for paprika. True. It is also great for fresh eating. Yes. Ripens from cream white to orange to red, 70 to 80 days from transplant. Okay. Again, you've got your 70 to 80 days, ripen 70 to 80 days from transplant. That tells you how long you need your growing season to be to grow this plant. And so I can grow this plant I know it doesn't say on here, but I know generally that peppers like it hot. I also know from experimentation that they like it relatively dry as well, but that's neither here nor there. Oh, here goes. Sow seeds indoors, 1/4 inch deep. Peppers germinate best in warm soil, so gentle bottom heat may be helpful until seedlings emerge. Wait to transplant outdoors until soil is warm. So it did say that. I just didn't read that part. But peppers do actually do okay if they get a little cold in the fall after they're mature. But if they get cold when they're young, when they're first planted out, if they get a frost, it can mess up your peppers it messes up their whole life. So try to keep your peppers from getting frosted. Now, my growing season where I am sure it's not going to frost is it's not going to frost in June, probably. I mean, it happens, but it doesn't generally. July, August, September. So 3, 6, 9, 12. That's about 120 days growing season. So our 70 to 80 days from transplant is good. I'm good. Now, the thing about peppers, unlike cabbages, when you harvest a cabbage, you just, cut off the head of cabbage and you have harvested your cabbage. But with a pepper, it keeps making more peppers. So after your 80 days, you've got some peppers, maybe if your conditions were right. And now I have 120 days in which for it to grow. It'll keep making peppers. I can keep picking them. I love this plant. I really do. I can't say enough about it. You should get it. So it says here, start in days 8 weeks before the last frost. So we're going to start it in a pot, get it ready to go. Give it 8 weeks of growth to get nice and sturdy before we put it in the ground after we know that it's absolutely not going to get too cold. This says it takes 14 days to germinate. And again, it still may take more time after that before you actually see the seed if it's covered with soil. And then it says, when you plant outdoors, plant 12 to 24 inches apart. Now, I've learned from experiences that peppers you can actually put pretty close together. But again, follow the recipe the first time. 12 to 24 inches apart. That's 1 to 2 feet. And you're going to put that in full sun. And I do recommend that you do indeed put it in full sun unless you are I mean, unless it's super, super duper hot and your peppers are like, oh, this sucks. Okay. The next one, Johnny's. This one doesn't have cute little icons. It's kind of a book. Pretty much the same information though. So what are we looking at? Matt's Wild Cherry. This is lovely. Little teeny tiny cherry tomato. Very prolific, grows like a weed. Very well named. So pretty much the same information here. And lots of information. Johnny's is they're a commercial grower. They out of Maine. They provide for a lot of. I mean, you can get lots of bulk stuff. They are a little pricey, somewhere in between MI Gardner and Seed Savers Exchange. As far as your price point goes, lots of really good information on their site. They do have some heirloom or lots of organic options, but not. There's a lot of hybrids there, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Their Seed Savers Exchange has a lot of heirlooms. And MI Gardner, I think, is a pretty good mix. Whereas Johnny's is, they're aimed toward your more commercial growers, so they are selling seeds that are going to give you quick or better results. And Johnny's, let me tell you about Johnny's. Oh my goodness. I have tried to grow strawberries so many times. I ordered strawberries from all different seed companies, and I keep killing them. I ordered strawberries from Johnny's 2 years ago. My strawberries have taken over. They are growing like weeds. Anytime I order a live small plant, it's going to be from Johnny's from now on. Let's see. Now, let me give you an example of not a great seed packet. If I can find it. Oh, yes. I mean, it's not terrible. It's not pretty. You don't need a pretty seed packet, but you do want information. There's nothing on this side. This is Burgess. They're okay. Their prices are pretty low. They're not my favorite. You get seed packets. They're not terrible. They will send you a bunch of free stuff too when you order stuff. So you get your seed packets, and it just kind of like start indoors 8 weeks before time to set in open ground. Cover thinly, then pack firmly and water. When plants are about 2 inches high, transplant to 3 feet apart in flat or pot, or 3 inches apart, in flat or pot. After danger of frost, set 2 to 3 feet apart in garden, but before doing so, harden the plants by gradually exposing them to outdoor air for about a week. So there's no information about days. There's no days to maturity on here. So, if you live in the South and you have year-round growing season, it doesn't matter. But for us, when we're trying to cram everything in between June and September, we really need that information for our warm weather crops. So I guess that's probably my biggest complaint about this particular seed packet. And this is from Burgess is out of Illinois. These guys all have websites. You can look for them. They're great. Probably Baker's Creek. Here we go. Baker's Creek. And this is rue. And rue is a perennial. So see, it's got a warning that it's poisonous on the front because rue is, in fact, okay, Baker's Creek is out of Missouri. They are another one of my favorites. They are a little pricey. You can get lots of heirlooms and hard to find stuff there. So definitely check them out. So your rue is a perennial, so it's going to have kind of different information. But it doesn't have zone on here. That's interesting. Usually for perennials, they'll tell you which zone it grows well in. I think rue probably grows well everywhere. Uh, so it's, brief description. Perennial, originally historic herb, even mentioned in the New Testament. Distinctive, compact, evergreen mounds in rich sea green. Takes heat and drought. My rue is bright yellow right now. It's not green. Um, surface sow, gently pressing into the soil. Light aids germination. Once established, prefers somewhat dry conditions. I have mine growing on a hill alongside my neighbor's driveway. So yeah, it's a pretty hardy plant, and it looks really cool in the summer. So usually with perennials, it needs a period of cold to sprout. It doesn't mention that with the rue at all. So perhaps that is not true with rue. I don't think I gave my rue any cold. I did put it on a windowsill. I generally, when I'm doing perennials or something that likes a little cold to sprout, I put it on the windowsill because it's cold on the windowsill, especially overnight. And then in the morning they get a little light, and then rather than putting it in the grow tents or under lights. So this says it sprouts in 7 to 28 days. Perennials are like that. They can take forever. The ideal temperature for sprouting is 68 degrees. It likes a little cool. Surface sow, when it a lot of seeds will say seed depth. Surface sowing, you just sprinkle the seeds on the surface. They want light to germinate. They will be triggered to germinate not just by the presence of water and soil, but also light. Lettuce is like that. And so is rue. This says to space the plants 15 to 18 inches apart. It's pretty bushy. Frost hardy, yes. In all caps. Minimum full sun 8 to 12 hours. So really good information on this packet as well. And Baker Creek again. I do not think the website says Baker's Creek. It says rareseeds.com. That's what it says. So so if you want to check them out. And they also have an awesome catalog. I don't know if you have any questions about how to read your seed packet. If you have a seed packet that says something different from what I've already showed you, and you want to know anything else, anything that I didn't bring up, do put your questions in the comments, or you can look for it. Just toss up. There's a plant section in the Discord, so you can go there. You can ask questions, all kinds of questions in the Discord. You can also ask questions in the comments on the websites. Speaking of this, I have a couple of questions that people have asked me in the last 24 hours. So the first question is about protection spells. Where can they get information about protection spells? There are quite a few books about protection spells out there. Jason Miller has one, Damon Brand has one, and there is a page on the Wikipedia all about protection spells. So if you just go over to wikipedia.com, put protection in the search engine, it'll pop up for you. And then another question is about preserving herbs. How do we preserve herbs for magic? There are lots of different ways. So I'm not exactly sure what this person who's asking is going to do with the herbs, but generally we dry them. This is simple. If you have a dehydrator, it will come with instructions on how to dry herbs. Lots of people do dry herbs. Or if you don't have a dehydrator, you can, if you can either lay the herbs out flat on some paper or a screen. I like to keep them out of the sun because I the sun actually damages oils, and I want those oils to be preserved as much as possible. I also avoid using the dehydrator for the more delicate herbs for the same reason, because the heat will damage the oils. You can also go ahead and take, if you have a big bunch of herbs, you cut the herbs, you've got a big bunch of mint. You can tie the end of that bunch into a little bouquet on a string and just hang it somewhere. I like to hang it from the ceiling in random places that isn't getting sunlight, but is getting good ventilation. Um, and then they will dry until they are crisp, and then you can strip the leaves off the stems and put them in a jar and label it, and you have your herbs ready to go whenever you need them. So whether you're going to burn them, whether you're going to add them to a concoction, a tincture, an oil, a lotion, they're ready to go. And that's it for today. That's If you have any questions, I would be very happy to answer them for you. And I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. And tomorrow I will be, returning to talk about something else. I had it up. I had it up for me to look at, and I closed it. So, I don't know. I will let you know. The schedule is posted on the Patreon as well as the community section of the Wikipedia. So you can go look, because I can't remember what it was. Have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow at 10:30 here on the Wikipedia YouTube channel.